All right, we'll go ahead and start. So this is my favorite week. We're gonna talk about discrimination and all that fun stuff. Before we begin, we don't have a lot of people, but just so you know, some of the topics that we're gonna talk about are a little bit sensitive. So just be prepared and try not to get offended too easily. And also, it's an open discussion, so everyone should voice their opinion. Same with online students. If you have your thoughts or opinions, feel free to talk about it. And it's okay to disagree with each other. So just keep it civil and respectful. So announcement. It seems like the evaluation is working. Even though they said that it won't open until a couple days later, but I see people sending me screenshots. They said that there's no confirmation email. There's only a notice at the end when you finish. So maybe just screenshot that or anything that can prove that you have done the evaluation. Good morning. So the link to this website is in the last two PowerPoints. If you download the slides and go to announcements, you should be able to get it. And you can also Google this and type Temu after. Yep. Okay. And your final project report is due this week. Just a reminder. Your 4-hour presentation day, that's our last day of class. So try to be professional, try to treat it as a real poster session. And then if I could, I would invite people to come here, like other grad students and people in our lab to visit, but I don't think it's a very good idea during the COVID situation. But anyway, try to be professional. And also, that will be our class picture day. I do that every semester when I teach a class. It helps me bond with students, and then I will post the picture on eCampus at the end of the semester. I don't think we'll have a lot of people, and for online students, I'll think a way to maybe just open the Zoom and then put it on the screen here, and then we can try to somehow fit in to one picture. Of course, if you don't want to take the picture, no worries. I know some people are concerned that they don't want their image to be put up on eCampus. That's fine, no worries. If you don't want to take the picture, you don't have to.
Mr. Wan?
Yes. Hold on, give me 1 second. It's gotta make it a little bit louder.
Can
Yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, what are we supposed to do if we can't come in person to the poster presentation?
You can just do the Zoom thing. You just be on Zoom, and then I'm going to look at your poster. You're going to look at your PowerPoint, and then you present it to me.
But what if my group is all online and like 3 of our group members are home? Like they didn't come back to campus.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
what are we supposed to do if we can't get the physical poster to you?
Oh, send me an email, and then we can talk about it. Yeah. All right. Any other question? Okay. All right. So if you can be in person, just present it through Zoom. Okay. Any other questions regarding your grades so far? I think I've updated all the grades, including your extra credits, exam and all that stuff. So let me know if you have any questions regarding your grades. or your report or the poster. Yes?
So speaking of, didn't you say that you might have gotten a grant to pay for that?
Yes, I did. So you can, once you print the poster, get a receipt. Hopefully the receipt has some kind of like school and what you did, to help them prove, okay, this is for the poster.
Is there instructions for printing the poster in a particular way? Or?
Yeah, I think it's in the guidebook. Yeah, I think so. Is it? Huh?
I think so. I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's in the guidebook. Yeah.
When you print a poster, does it like take several days for the order to go through? Like I don't want to stack something and like wait till the last minute.
Sometimes, yeah. So don't wait until the last day. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on the place and the time of the year.
Would you recommend a particular place?
Yeah, it's also on the guidebook. You can go to the architecture building here. Yep, bottom floor. All right. Any other questions? We're good? Okay, just want to make sure online students are good too. Okay, all right, so we're going to talk about stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination. First of all, do they mean the same thing? No? Okay. But do people use them interchangeably? Yeah, so we hear people use them like just pretty much for the same thing. Or so now you know they're different. And we're going to talk about the differences between them one by one. Now let's do a recap. If you remember attitude, that's an individual's favorable or unfavorable beliefs, feelings, or actions towards an attitude object. And that object can be a thing, can be an idea, or it can be a group of people. And there are three components to an attitude. Affective component is your emotions and your feelings. The cognitive component is your thoughts or beliefs towards that target. And lastly, you have your behavioral component, and that will be your actions towards the target. Okay. Can someone give me an example for each, or one of them? Yeah.
Would stereotypes fit under cognitive?
Stereotypes. What's the definition of stereotypes? Usually I don't ask people to define it, but do you remember the definition for stereotypes?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, why would you say that's cognitive but not affective or behavioral?
I think it could like affect how you behave, but it's like cognitive and that's your beliefs about a certain group.
Okay. Okay, so you kind of got the definition, yeah. So stereotype is certain beliefs, right? About, and that's our thoughts. Yeah, and then prejudice, what would that be?
Behavior.
Prejudice
I'd
is
say
behavior?
that's cognitive. And
Prejudice,
then
uh-huh.
it can become behavioral if you like act on prejudice, but like it's like cognitive.
Okay. All right. And you thought it was behavioral?
Well, I agree with that, yeah.
Oh, okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, what about behavioral components of attitude? Can someone give me an example of that?
Discrimination, I would say, is like
Okay.
a behavioral
Okay.
thing.
Yeah, very good. So those terms, we kind of need the definitions to help us understand which component it is. It's pretty easy. So stereotypes is cognitive components, as you said, and prejudice is the affective part because that includes our emotions, our feelings, and then discrimination is behavioral. I'll give you the definition one by one. So stereotype is a generalization about a group's characteristics, and this is your belief, which is the cognitive component. It can be either positive or negative. what would be a positive stereotype? Yeah.
That Asians are smart.
Okay. What would be a negative stereotype?
Aren't all stereotypes negative? Like, in a way, because like if you have the standard that Asians should be smart, then if you don't feel like you meet that, then that affects you in a negative way.
Yeah, so the result can be negative, regardless whether it's a positive or negative stereotypes, right? But stereotypes itself, it can be positive. Like, I think,
Like a positive characteristic.
yeah. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Okay. We had a positive stereotype. What about a negative stereotype?
Like the stereotype that, like that Asians work in, like nail salons.
Okay.
That would be a negative one.
Okay. Yeah. It could be negative. It depends on how you look at the professional, I guess. Did you have an example?
A negative one would be that viewing all protesters as violent.
Yeah, violence. Usually we think violent, it's being violent, it's negative, right? Yeah. Okay, very good. The stereotype that blondes are dumb. Yep. Yep. Okay, and then prejudice. This is usually a hostile or negative attitude towards a group or the members of that outgroup. So this is your emotional responses, which is the affective component. This can also be either positive, but usually when we talk about prejudice, it's negative. Can someone give me an example of a positive prejudice and negative prejudice? It's pretty simple because it's about your emotional responses.
The one that comes to mind for me is always when we covered the civil rights movement, and they were talking about the bars at diners, and they wouldn't let people of color sit at the bars, and there was usually quite a bit of hostility there to keep them out of the diners that were predominantly white at the time.
You say the bar?
Yeah, it's like a
Okay.
bar on the counter.
Okay. Do you think that's more of an action or behavior?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay, so you think that so why would they
Yeah, so
do that?
prejudice caused the discrimination.
Okay, so when you say they don't allow certain group of people to come in, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
so
why
prejudice
wouldn't?
Itself would be the hostile nature towards them.
Okay.
When they do like sit-ins.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they're hostile, do you think that they have certain emotions towards it? What kind of emotions will cause that hostility?
I think some anger.
Anger.
Feelings of entitlement.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems to be the big one for that time period.
Okay. Yeah. Any thoughts on that example? Or you have other examples as well? It's actually pretty simple. So if I like a group, that's the positive prejudice, because that's my emotion, right, towards that group. And then if I don't like a group, can be simple as that. Can also be anger. Can be the fear of unknown. For example, if this is my out group, I don't know who they are. I don't know how they're gonna behave, and then I see some kind of media coverage about them, and then I have that emotional response to that information or to that outgroup. Does that make sense? Okay, so make sure you understand the difference between stereotypes and prejudice. And then discrimination. This is usually a negative action toward a group based solely on their membership while favoring another group. And this is your behavior. And obviously that will be the behavior component. This can be either positive or negative, just like prejudice and stereotypes. Can someone give me a positive discrimination and a negative discrimination?
Like pretty privilege would be positive discrimination, kind of.
Pretty privilege.
Like,
What does
it's
that
like
mean?
when like pretty people like get to, like, for instance, like skinny girls kind of have like more of an excuse, like if they eat a ton of food, like they get a pass and it's like hot and it's cute that like they can eat that much food. But like if an overweight girl like does the same thing, it's like she needs to get healthy and
Okay.
like is being gross.
Gotcha.
So like that would be like positive discrimination towards skinny girls.
Okay, yeah. So we treat people differently based on their appearance, right? Okay, that's a type of discrimination and can be either positive or negative. Very good. Any other examples that you want to talk about?
Like, usually African American people get pulled over like by the police more, or like Muslim people get stopped at the airport more.
Okay. Yeah. So that's discrimination. Sometimes they don't realize that, right? They don't notice it that they're doing it. Yeah. Very good. So overall, we talked about stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination. Overall, they're all biased, so they can be either positive and negative. It just sometimes we use it more often in a way than the other. So when we talk about stereotypes and we think about it, they're just schemas and heuristics, right? I think we talked about schemas and heuristics. I don't know if you guys remember. So they're our mental shortcuts, so like rule of thumb, and they're our learned knowledge. It helps us make judgments quickly or decisions quickly in life. Do you remember the semantic network? So it's like your related beliefs are linked together. If you don't remember, we did this activity in class. It's when I put a bed and then asked you to remember those terms. You kind of remember them, right? So that's the activation of one belief spreads to related information within the schema. So let's say when I say black people, and then you have all kinds of other schemas linked to that term, right? When I say Asian people, white people, it's the same thing. There's a schema, semantic network here. Any questions on this? Right, so that's how we think about stereotypes in cognitive psychology perspectives. So what's wrong with having stereotypes? It helps us make decisions quickly. And they're just schemas. And we learn those information. What's wrong with it? Uh-huh.
I think because it can be negative, it causes you to make quick judgmental decisions that aren't always right.
Okay.
It causes you to group everyone into one section when that's not actually accurate.
Gotcha. So it's not always accurate. Okay. Any
How
other?
it's formed.
Huh?
How the stereotype is formed may not be representative of the population that you're making a mental shortcut of.
Okay, very good. So it might not be representative to the whole group. Yeah.
I would say I feel like it's most problematic if you don't realize that you have that you see those groups that way, because it's not necessarily problematic
Uh-huh.
itself to have stereotypes if you're like monitoring yourself of like, is that an actual belief, or is that just something that I saw like in the media, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so a lot of times it's not conscious, right?
Mhm.
And then it affects our behavior. Okay, very good, very good. So stereotypes, they're often overgeneralized, and they are not always accurate. If you find this funny, I think this is funny. Oh, chat? Okay, thanks. They're usually wrong Sometimes they can be accurate, actually. But yeah, sometimes they can be wrong too. So it's like half and half. It does help us make decision quickly in life, or it helps us act quickly in life. But yeah, sometimes they can be wrong. Okay. So biased interpretation of events. So this is when you have the same event happening. Different people can have different interpretations of the events based on stereotypes, right? And this can affect our memory as well. So different people can have different memories. When you have different perspectives, you will have different memories. I don't know if you learned in psychology is that our memory is actually not very reliable. Did we talk about that here a little bit?
Briefly, yeah.
Huh?
Briefly.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's more about cognitive psychology. So we didn't get a chance to talk about that here, but as you know, our memories can be very biased. Stereotypes can affect our interpretations and our memories of the event. Therefore, they are very hard to change. So those are some of the problems of having stereotypes. Now let's do activity. So you need to tell me whether those behaviors are prejudice, stereotypes, or discrimination. So that kind of helps me understand whether you can differentiate them. Okay. So all Asians are short.
Stereotype.
Yeah, stereotypes. Very good. All black people are good at basketball. Stereotype. Very good. I don't like gay people.
Prejudice.
Prejudice. Very good. That's not me, just an example. I don't recruit black people.
Discrimination.
You agree? Okay, very good, very good. So you got it. Now, in daily life, you know how to use those terms correctly, and you can tell your friends too. I think it's pretty useful. Now let's think about this. Is discrimination wrong? What do you guys think? Yeah. Is it ever acceptable or justified to discriminate? No? So Vinay says no. What do you guys think?
I mean, not based on race, but let's say you're hiring people, aren't you discriminating against people that don't have the degree that you want? I mean, like in the sense that based on their membership,
Okay.
instead of not having the degree.
That's also their membership, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So you think sometimes it can be
So I wouldn't say
justified?
that's bad.
Oh, so that's bad.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, you wouldn't say that's
Yeah.
bad. Okay. So sometimes it's justified.
Yeah.
I can see that where there's certain jobs that need certain qualifications. Obviously, you
Okay.
don't want a surgeon without a degree.
Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about that very quickly, and we have a lot of ism, right? Sexism, ageism, racism. What else? Judaism. Is that a thing?
That's just the name for
Oh,
it.
okay. What else do we have?
Homophobia.
Homophobia. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that and talk. I guess discuss it because the definition. We're gonna discuss that next class, but right now we're gonna just focus on discrimination. So let's look at this situation. When an airline company is hiring a pilot, they only consider people with good eyesight and they reject all the blind people. Is this discrimination? What do you think?
I think it is, but I don't think
Okay.
it's bad.
Okay, so it is discrimination. What do you think?
I would say, yeah, like now that I'm thinking about it, I think it technically is discrimination. I just I didn't think of it that way, I guess.
Yeah, right? Okay, so is this justified? Okay, so we all agree this is justified. Okay, pretty clear-cut example. And sometimes we don't think discrimination like that, like when we use the term, right? But technically, this is discrimination and it's justified. What about this? A female
Wait, I have a
patient.
question.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I feel like I do this a lot. So, like in our definition of prejudice, it says, or of discrimination, it says that it's like an unjustified negative behavior. So if this is justified, like you need to be seen to get the job.
Wait, in the definition it says it's unjustified?
It's unjustified. Like discrimination is unjustified. So if this is justified, wouldn't it not be discrimination?
I think the textbook one says unjustified.
Don't worry about the textbook one.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So
overall,
it's
it's
like
yeah,
justified
because
by discrimination.
I'm just curious.
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point because maybe they have a different interpretation of the term, but if you look across fields, not just psychology, not just social psychology, philosophy, and other subjects, they use discrimination as a bias. Maybe they kind of adopt nowadays how lay people use the term discrimination, but that's not actually how we define it in academics. Okay, so good point. Scratch that. Just focus on the definition that I gave you. Okay. Okay, so back to this example. A female patient refuses to be examined by a qualified male gynecologist simply because she wants to be treated by a woman. Is this discrimination? So Vietnamese says no, but Haley say yes. Yes. Okay. So this is actually discrimination.
Oh, well, I feel like
Uh-huh.
it depends. If she feels like she doesn't want to be treated by, I was thinking of it in a sense like she wanted to be comfortable, like I would feel more comfortable if a female treated me. So I feel like if she's doing it because she wants to be around someone of her same gender, she would feel more comfortable, then it's not. But if
Yeah.
she's doing it because she refuses to believe that the male gynecologist can be even qualified, then I feel like it is discrimination.
Yeah. So I actually predicted some will have this kind of arguments, and I actually typed it here. So people might argue that it's okay being examined by a man. Such an intimate way might make a woman feel uncomfortable, right? What about, let's change that. People feel discomfort when they're examined by a different ethnicity. Because people do that. They actually report the same level of discomfort if they get touched or examined by a different ethnicity. Is that discrimination?
I feel like it is.
Okay. What's the difference?
Well, I feel like in the same sense that like if it's a female, then they have the same body as you
Yeah.
in that sense, so they're more used to it, and you might feel more comfortable with someone of your same gender, because especially if you're like straight in a sense, you might feel very uncomfortable with that.
Okay.
But for instance, if it's someone of your different ethnicity, not that you don't have as much in common, but especially if it's someone of your same gender, I feel like it's a lot different.
So you feel that's different. What about men? So in STEM, they feel more comfortable working with other men. They feel like male engineers are more reliable. They just feel more comfortable having them do the job than female practitioners. Do you think that's discrimination?
I think that's discrimination because then you're making a judgment about their qualifications. So for instance, if she's making a judgment about his qualifications based on race or based on gender, then that's discrimination. But if
Okay.
you're choosing to work with a female gynecologist because you would feel more comfortable in the sense of like, oh, I don't want a man touching me down there in that kind of way, then I would understand that.
Okay. I understand your point. Yeah. So you're saying about qualification, but not about other characteristics. But if we look at the definition, it's about their characteristics, right? Would qualification be a part of the characteristics? Like let's say you're qualified doing certain thing and then she's qualified doing other things, would that be different characteristics of you two?
I feel like technically it is.
Right? Yeah. So if we look at the definition and we solely use the definition, we're not talking about feelings, being whether it's comfortable or not. This is actually discrimination if we base on the definition of what many fields are using. Right? That's why a lot of the situations can be very complicated, and that's why we need to talk about them to get a, I don't know, better understanding. So it's not like generalizing, okay, all discrimination is bad, but why is it? And why is some discrimination different from other? For example, you're saying the feelings can be very different from discriminating based on qualification, right? Very good. So Gary asked a question, what if you discriminate against racist people? So if you know someone is racist and then you treat them differently, yes, that's still discrimination. Do you guys agree? Yeah. All right. Do you think this is justified? So you think it's justified? You pretty much, okay, justified?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, all right.
Doesn't make sense, but yeah.
Gotcha. We're gonna talk about this. I'm gonna play. Oh, we still have some time, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate. What if we change the situation a little bit? Let's say in China, there are more men than women, and men, they want to be examined by men doctors, but not women. That will cause more men doctors in China than women doctors. And do you think that's justified discrimination? It actually harms the women population. So if they want to pursue the, let's say, medical degree, they can't necessarily get a job because men don't want to be examined by them. Do you think that's justified?
I feel like it really depends on your reasoning behind it. So if,
Mhm.
like, it goes back to the qualification thing. Like, if you're doing it because you believe women are unqualified,
Yeah.
you believe like every single female during college is qualified, then yes, like
Mhm.
it's unjustified.
So yeah, it's very hard to identify each individual's thoughts, right? And their reason. Let's assume in China, all the men are discriminating women doctors because they feel uncomfortable, not because they think that they're incompetent. Do you think that's okay? Because women will not get doctors' jobs. They will be forced to do something else. It actually happens in a lot of fields here too. What do you guys think? Same with man nurses, because women, they don't want to be examined by men, they get less jobs. They held a higher bar to get into the system. Do you think that's justified?
I think you could go deeper than just comfort and
Mhm.
ask why they feel uncomfortable. Because if you're uncomfortable, obviously you could have, maybe there was a trauma in the past, and very obviously
Mhm.
that is a justification. But if it is prejudice, then that is not a justification.
So let's say you have a patient coming in, and then no, you actually have like hundreds of patients every day, right? And then you ask them every single of them, and then some of them it's gonna be like, yeah, it's just comfort. It's not like traumatized. It's just stereotypes or some kind of traditional beliefs or
It's a hard
conservative.
one because you have this idea of you want your patients to be comfortable, and
Yeah.
to go against their comfort level obviously could harm them.
Yeah. So would you force them to be examined by a male?
Yeah, that's a big part of, what is it, do no harm is part of, a doctor's creed, if you will.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want this imbalance of,
Hmm. Because if you're not harming the patients
you end up
per
harming
se.
the doctors getting the degree in the
Yes.
first place.
right? Sometimes this can be very, very complicated. It's not just like simple, oh, that's discrimination, that's bad, and then we're gonna eliminate all of it without talking about the cost, right? Okay, so this is an example, something that you can think about. What about this one? A restaurant owner doesn't want to hire a black person because his customers are racist. He worries that many customers will stop coming rather than being served by a black person. So the owner does not hold the racist beliefs himself. He just wants to make sure his business won't go bankrupt. Is this discrimination?
I would say yes, because you're giving in to your racist customers instead of doing what's actually right.
Okay. Okay, so you think it's
Yeah, the action in the end is a negative action that does harm the person that he's trying to hire.
very good, very good. So a lot of times, it's not like your stereotype caused the discrimination or your prejudice caused the discrimination. Once you have this act, without talking about the intention or your feelings, this is discrimination. It's just your action, right, determines this. Is this justified? No. No. Okay. But he'll go bankrupt, or she, this owner, will go bankrupt and they can't make a living. Their family is gonna suffer. Is this justified?
Well, like, how do they know that? How do they know that their customers are racist and they're not going to them?
So, this kind of place exists, right? Without a doubt, it exists. Maybe in the US, maybe in some other country. And when it's so obvious that you know for sure they don't want to be served by a black person. And when they come, they're gonna be like, oh, I don't want to eat here anymore. And this kind of place definitely exists. It's sad, but it's the truth.
Yeah, a restaurant owner typically knows their customer base, but if,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say it's a moral issue
Okay.
for that particular owner is, do they really want to keep serving racist customers? Because if they do hire a black person and they do all leave, then they will get a different customer base that doesn't have an issue with
Mm-hmm.
a black server.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe they can move to a different place, right?
Right.
Yeah, so again, goes back to the situation. Sometimes people can move, sometimes people can't, based on different reasons. Maybe family, maybe their parents are sick, or I don't know. Maybe they don't know that they can move. They were born and raised in that environment. Just like what slavery happened here, a lot of times people are not necessarily evil, but they are in that environment. They might not know what to do. Okay, thank you. So Gary says, I feel like it is. The black waiter is going to suffer, his business is going to suffer, and it is going to be super hard to change his customers' beliefs. It's justifiable, but it isn't held to the highest moral standard, which will place doing what is right above money and suffering. Okay, so yeah, Gary's saying this is justified because maybe this person needs to put their own, it's weird, put their own family in first. Yeah, so a lot of times, again, this is another example that's more complicated. Okay.
If you get too still long enough, it's on.
So this is very subjective. Sometimes people think, yeah, it's okay to discriminate, sometimes it's not. Okay, again, we have a lot of situations that's so complicated, and it really depends on your own moral foundation or your personal views or your values. So why can't we just let people decide if it's their business? Yeah.
Because those stereotypes aren't even across the population, and it does harm the people who are being
Very good. Very simple. Like it will harm a group of people, right? So the problem to let people do what they want is that it gives more freedom to only some people, especially those with power and money. And the people that they are discriminating against will have less freedom. So a small group of people will be benefited by this, and then the other group will suffer. So that's the problem of letting people just discriminate if it's their business or if they're the owner. Any questions? Okay, we're good. So when is acceptable to discriminate? It really depends on the situation. Like all the examples that I just gave you, sometimes it can be complicated, sometimes it can be pretty easy, simple cut examples, like the pilot one. So Judith Thomason, she's a philosopher, and she thinks that discrimination that favors a historically underprivileged class is more likely to be acceptable. Do you see that? Or do you kind of see what's going on in nowadays society and kind of fits to this idea? Right? So for example, she will think that if a woman is getting hired over a man solely because of her gender, it is okay considering men have been hired over women so many times in the past. So that's based on her theory. Do you agree? Okay.
I think they're equally qualified.
Yeah, they're equally qualified. And hiring over women over men, you think that's okay, right? Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously discrimination can be bad, but in a way, it's sort of like righting the wrong.
Okay, righting the wrong. Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Yeah, how many times have those people in the past gone and the man was chosen solely because of his gender?
Very good, very good. So that actually leads to this theory. So Robert Nozick, he will disagree. I'm going to read that comment real quick. Let's say white people, they don't own slaves now. Why would they need to pay for their ancestors' fault? The men nowadays, they didn't get hired over women, right? Why would they need to pay for what other people have done in the past? That's his belief. Let me read the comment real quick. Think about this. This counter argument towards the Thompson one. So Francis said, I don't think that's okay because it's still discrimination. It's not fixing the problem. It's just changing the focus. Okay, and I don't know what this is.
They're agreed.
Oh. Okay, so that's agreed. There's something new. All right. What do you guys think? Uh-huh.
I think it's okay because, like, even if they're identical on resumes, if your staff is mostly men, then bringing in a woman that can bring like new ideas and like add a different dynamic to the group.
Yeah.
So like even if she doesn't look more qualified on her resume, like she still has unique qualifications that he doesn't, and the group that you already have doesn't.
Gotcha. So think from a different perspective. It might bring diversity to the group. It brings more creativity to the group, a different voice. Okay. What do you guys think? Do you agree with this more or Thompson more?
I guess Thompson, because like if they're equally qualified, then you have to choose one. I feel like if the man is a little more qualified and you choose the woman because she's a woman, then yes, like that shouldn't be done if you choose the more qualified person. But if they're completely equally qualified, like same exact resume and everything, then I feel like it is okay to choose the woman, especially if your employee population is mostly male.
Gotcha. So, okay. Would you agree? Or
Yeah,
different
well,
okay.
I was thinking about the original comment that he made, that I think there's a trickle-down effect from that, just because the Emancipation Proclamation didn't free all slaves, though, even though that was the intent, it didn't. It took like 2 years or something before
Okay.
some people even knew about it, and It didn't really, because then suddenly they were servants for the same plantation, working for the same plantation.
Mhm.
It didn't really up their status to the same level, and
Yeah.
you still deal with that today, that historically underprivileged still matches with the underprivileged of today.
So you think there's a long-lasting effect?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
trickle-down effect.
Okay.
It hasn't gone away.
Okay. Do you think, like, put emotions aside, do you think it would be more fair to flip a coin in that situation? Man versus woman, equally qualified, black versus white, and just flip a coin. Would that be more fair?
Yeah, I think it would be more fair to flip a coin if they're equally qualified.
Okay.
I think it depends on if you're thinking of fair as in that moment or fair as in long term.
Okay.
I think there's always more research to be done to figure out who's more qualified.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the counter argument. Oh. So justice is not equality. Sometimes we think, okay, this is fair, but maybe it's not justice. Does that make sense? For example, as you said, white people enjoy privilege longer from their ancestor. So they have this longer lasting effect is that they get more opportunities. They don't need to worry about food as often as other people. So that's the counter argument. Do you agree with this one? Okay. What about this? Do you value justice more, or do you value equality more? There's no right answer.
I don't know, to be honest.
I think
You're not- okay.
justice goes with equity, and so I'd say I value those two things more.
So, can you say that again?
As I think justice goes with equity, and I would value those two things more over
Okay.
equality.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes me think of this cartoon sketch where they sort of sketched out equity and justice and equality.
Mhm.
And in the picture is a fence, and it's different groups, it's three people standing there. And in the beginning, there's one person who has 3 boxes, and they can
Mhm.
see over the fence, but the other 2 can't. And this is how it is. And then there's equity, which is, or equality, in which everybody gets 1 box, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that everyone can still see over the fence. Some people are taller than others.
Yeah.
Some people have more privilege than
Mhm.
others. And then we have equity, in which each person is given enough boxes so that we can see over the fence.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Again, this is a complicated topic. Also, it's okay to not know whether you value which one more, but something to think about as well. We have 2 minutes left. Is it okay to discriminate Asian in terms of affirmative action? Because people are doing that right now.
So what exactly is happening? What they
So Asian people, they held a higher standard, so they need to make more higher scores on SAT or GPA. Oh no, GRE or higher GPA too, to get into the same schools. And some schools, their arguments, like Harvard, they said that Asian people, they're boring, they're less interesting. That's why they don't hire them.
Harvard actually said that.
Maybe not the exact word. It's like they're saying that they're playing, I guess. But you can look into it. It's pretty interesting. Some schools, yeah, they think that because they lack of characters, they're boring.
I think it sort of goes back to the stereotype that all Asians are smart, too,
Uh-huh.
and that's not necessarily okay
Uh-huh.
at all. I think there's better ways to do affirmative action, since the idea is to uplift those who are given poor opportunities in the first place.
Yeah.
Perhaps those with poor opportunities should have a lower GPA to get in, because obviously they're not given the resources to get that GPA as high,
Okay.
versus a school. I think it should be based on school, not race.
Yeah. So the problem, this is another question you can think about. We're out of time, but so a lot of people, they think it's okay to, even though Asians, they're not historically privileged in the U.S. They're also underprivileged. A lot of people think it's okay. Think about why is that? So that we don't have enough time to talk about it, but I think it's interesting. We treat different groups differently, right? And then again, you can leave if you want. But last point is for schools, they have certain number of students that they can recruit, right? If they want to recruit more underprivileged from a different group, they have to reduce the numbers from a certain group. So some group needs to be taken out, and they will suffer. Why is it okay for some group and why it's not okay for other group? Yeah, something to think about. You can talk about it with your friends and family. It's some interesting and relevant issue. And lastly, this is funny, and that's it. I don't know if you get the joke.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is Japanese, and then they think it's One Direction. No. All right. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too.